Hello, everybody. My name is Brian Kilcourse, and I'm one of the managing partners at RSR Research. Along with my partner, Steve Rowen, we developed a report recently, and it's called Agility, Resiliency, and Sustainability as a Strategy in Consumer-Facing Businesses. This particular report was sponsored by Esri, which is a location data analytics company in America. And it was, of course, done in partnership with IORMA. So we're very pleased to share a little bit of the results that we came up with in this particular benchmark and to make some recommendations to businesses going forward. So let's talk just a little bit about what the premise of this study was. We've been hearing a lot of these words recently: resilience, agility, and sustainability. They've hit the popular press. Their meaning is somewhat vague, so we're going to try to define this, both in how we see it and how retailers in particular see it, and bake that into a go-forward strategy for businesses. But what we're talking about here is that many leading consumer-facing businesses have begun to embrace strategies that can help them to mitigate the effects of climate change, geopolitical challenges, environmental concerns, and the availability of labor and raw materials on where and how they source their products, while meeting the demands of consumers who are growing increasingly aware of the environmental impacts of those products that they buy. So the real question is, to what extent are companies thinking about those challenges, and how are they baking them into a strategy that is going to guarantee more resilience, agility, and sustainability? What information technologies do they need to address the challenges, and how far are they into their adoption? So we're going to talk about all of those things. We wanted to uncover what their real attitudes are about these things and where they are. If you haven't listened to RSR before, here's a quick rundown on who we are and how long we've been doing it. We are from the retail industry. My partner, Steve Rowen, Paula Rosenblum, and I have all come from the retail enterprise. And we started this company in 2007 because we saw a hole in the type of research that was being done. While there was plenty of research that compared technology A to technology B, there was almost nothing on what people actually did with it. Lots of theoretical best practices, but very little pragmatic advice on how retailers and other solutions providers are working together to solve business problems. So we wanted to get into that pragmatism, and we decided to do it by asking retailers themselves, what are you doing with these technologies? Which business challenges and opportunities are you trying to address? And what can you offer as advice to other retailers? Over the years, we've done something in the area of 175 benchmark studies, which gives us a wonderful opportunity to essentially trend the adoption of certain technologies and to highlight how overperformers that we call retail winners, how they are using those technologies to create competitive advantage. And we share all of those insights with you. So that's what we do. The other thing I'll tell you is that all of our benchmark reports are free to you. All you have to do is sign on to our website. We do not sell your individual names, so we will never do that. We do this in an effort to create a dialogue between those who have solutions and those who need them. In this particular study, we had 106 qualified respondents. So these are retailers and CPG companies primarily, but mostly retailers. And you can see the breakdowns based on revenue, and we use the US dollar as our benchmark. We broke it down this way. We had a small percentage of retailers less than $500 million. And from $500 million up to $1 billion, we had a good representation, 39%. From $1 billion to $5 billion equivalent, 29%. And finally, over $5 billion, we had 17%. So this is a very good rundown for us. It gives us a chance to understand what the retailers who are spending money on technology, what they're doing with it. Now, in this particular instance, we asked whether you are working toward the average or working above the average. And you can see that 62% of retailers who responded to this study were above the average that's reported by the National Retail Federation. It's a good number. By vertical, you can see we had a great representation of fast-moving consumer goods. You can think of those as groceries, convenience stores and drugstores, apparel, footwear, and accessories, good representation, hard goods and general merchandise, all good representation, very little representation from the brands themselves. In terms of the markets that that these retailers serve, 100% of them serve the United States, and then there's a breakdown by Canada, Latin America, UK, Europe, Middle East and Africa, and finally Asia Pacific. So our concentration really are in English-speaking countries. You can see that USA, Canada, UK, and to some extent Europe are pretty well represented. So we felt that we had a good quorum to make some generalizations. What are those generalizations? Well, here's a summary of everything that we learned in this particular benchmark. Retailers accept that they'll never see a return to predictability as they saw perhaps before COVID. We would actually conjecture that there hasn't been much predictability since before the Great Recession in 2008 and 2009. But retailers have been trying to get back to a sense of normalcy that was blown away by the pandemic. As you can see, that they've basically said that they need to move away from what we call a command and control operational model to much more of a sense and respond operational model. Now, the reason they can say that is because the technologies available today will allow them to do that. Retailers' top business concern is that consumers now have a world of choices. And of course, we all have this world of choices, right? It's right here. We all have one of these. And we start our shopping journey on the mobile device long before we ever walk into a store. And that puts traditional retailers at an inherent disadvantage because we as consumers know that we can find whatever we want, wherever it is, at a price that we're willing to pay. And the convenience factor is just really overwhelming. Retailers see implementing location-aware capabilities as a way to improve almost every aspect of the shopping experience by knowing both how shoppers and inventory are moving through the value equation. That visibility creates opportunities to speed up both the supply chain, to make CRM data from loyal customers more actionable, and even to open new ways to sell to existing customers. 80% of the best performers see workforce equity and inclusion as an important way to enhance their business resilience. 56% will undertake some sort of climate risk analysis. Of course, these are current day issues. You read about them in the paper all the time. One of the reasons I'll say, quite frankly, that retailers are so focused on workforce equity and inclusion is because of the job market. A lot of young people will choose jobs outside of the retail industry. Retail doesn't have the same available labor pool that it had before. People in my age group, boomers, have all started to retire, gone away. And the new generation of workers have far different expectations about what a job should bring to them. And so this is forcing retailers to think about these issues. By the way, if you want to know more about that, we have a workforce management study that we published earlier in 2023. It's a good read and gets into these issues extensively. Now, the greatest roadblock to greater resiliency are simply that the legacy systems aren't capable of taking advantage of all the new non-transactional data that's available to them. And to a lesser extent, corporate leadership tends to prefer gut feel to advanced analytics. Of course, that's true because it's retail. Retail is a famously reactive business. Something happens in the marketplace and retailers react. That's the way they've gone to market for years and years and years. And the idea that advanced analytics can make better decisions than they can is something that's very hard for retailers to swallow. Finally, improved data quality is a key technology enabler. By the way, it's also a huge problem, as well as implementing these new analytical capabilities. Lots of opportunities for retailers. Now, when we asked retailers to answer a few simple questions, we found out that there are very big differences based on which vertical they serve. So we asked retailers the simple question, which of these is the highest priority for your company in the coming year? Number one is sustainable growth. And I want to talk about that in just a second. You can see that fast-moving consumer goods retailers and hard goods retailers are the most concerned about that, and that fashion retailers are the least concerned. Now, I'll get back to that in just a second. Strengthen operational effectiveness. That's always an issue for retailers. I can't think of a retailer who doesn't worry about that, but it's not the top issue for them this time around. And business resilience, the ones who are most concerned about it are the ones that are most impacted by COVID. Those are fashion merchants. Of course, we all know the fashion merchants were really, really impacted by the fact that people couldn't go out and shop. It hurt the high street stores in ways that will be felt for years to come. Now back to sustainable growth. When we use the word sustainability, we tend to think like consumers do. We think about the type of product, where it was sourced, the labor that went into making that product, its environmental impact when it gets recycled, and all of those important things. But when we ask retailers about sustainability, they're thinking about sustaining their business. They're using the word very differently. They think about sustainability the way consumers do, because only to the extent that consumers push them to do that. Otherwise, when we use the word sustainability, retailers are thinking about their ability to sustain the business in these tumultuous times. And so that's why these numbers about finding new ways to drive sustainable growth are fascinating, because retailers aren't talking about environmental sustainability, they're talking about business sustainability. Keep that in mind as we go forward. However, when we ask them what they mean with sustainability as it relates to the products that they're selling to consumers and consumer attitudes, we get much more in line with what consumers are thinking. Number one, when we're thinking about how important it is the ethical sourcing of products. Right behind it is energy efficiency, environmentally conscious manufacturing processes, and on down the line. This is great news. What this says is that retailers are very aware that consumers care about these things, and they are trying to adjust accordingly. And we'll see as we go through the study how far they've gotten in making that actually happen. Now, when we ask the same question about resilience, this is fascinating. How important is resilience? And this is what we find out. First of all, number one, to weather unexpected financial conditions. This gets back to what I just said to you a bit ago about what they mean by sustainability and resiliency and agility and all these important words. It's the ability to keep running, to keep the business going. Then we get to more interesting things like to absorb supply chain shocks and quickly recover from them, to market, promote, and price goods in a way that resonates with with shoppers. The resilience of our technology assets to respond well to changing conditions in the marketplace, to attract, hire, and retain good employees, and to effectively manage operational costs. All of these things are important, but the most important is for retailers is the ability to weather unexpected financial conditions. So now we have some definitions about sustainability and resilience. What do they mean when we say agility? And here's what they said. This is good. This is good news. Agility to them is the ability to match supply and demand when both have changing dynamics. And of course, we've been studying this for some years now as retailers learn how to consume non-transactional data in near real time to make decisions faster as they try to bring demand and supply together. They want to realign their workforce to meet the challenges as they arise. They want to realign their organization to meet operational demands, to accommodate shoppers' ever-changing paths to purchase, to take advantage of new technologies when they become available, to compete as new competition arises, and to find alternative sources for the products that they sell. All of these are very, very important to retailers. And this is why we say that retailers are moving from what we would call a wash, rinse, repeat cycle to something much, much more agile. They sense something happening in the marketplace and they want to respond to it in near real time to essentially to save that potential opportunity. So they're looking at agility as the move towards a sense and respond organization. Now, it might not surprise you then that their focus has been on the supply chain side of the business. And that's very, very important because, of course, if you can't bring the goods to market, you can't sell them. Retailers want to be able to identify supply chain bottlenecks and disruptions and ultimately to optimize the flow of goods in an agile manner as market demands dictate. What that means is when they sense something happening in the supply chain, they want to be able to respond very, very quickly to those things while they can still save the business from that disruption. So that's really interesting to us. And of course, those of you who've been in the retail business for a long time know that the supply chain tends to be the most over-engineered part of the whole business. It's the same today as it was 30 years ago, with the exception that before it moved in a serial and kind of a steady fashion. Now it moves as a network. It moves very, very quickly, and retailers want to be able to respond in near real time as interruptions occur. So this is exciting stuff. Now, as we look at the post-pandemic pandemic awareness to certain things, we want to find out how important the retailers saw these impacts. So what do they want to do? These are the things. Number one, they want to be able to monitor the supply chain in near real time and react as necessary. This just gets to what I was talking about. They want to be able to see it, they want to be able to react to it, and they want to be able to recover in time to continue doing business the way they planned. Digital twin of operations to evaluate disruption scenarios and prepare supply chain to minimize financial impact. That goes right behind the top bullet. And how do you do that? You do that with real-time inventory management and visibility. These are the things that are so important to retailers. They've been working on them for years, and they are making tremendous progress. Now, I've mentioned winners earlier on, and I want to bring it forward again this time because what we do in our studies is we focus on overperformers. We call them retail winners, and we have found that what they do is not just the things that everybody else does better, but they also do some different things. They have differentiating thought processes, strategies, and tactics. And we tease these out of the data so that we can make recommendations. For this particular report, we had something like 67% or some number like that of our respondents who were defined as winners. And that's because we established that sales growth at 4.5%. That was probably a little too low. The growth was actually somewhere in the vicinity of 6 to 7%, but it was still great for this report because we were able to tease out lots of learnings, which we will share for you as recommendations. And here's the first time we see it. We asked retailers, how important are the following to your company's resilience and agility? What are important? And you can see that there's a lot of difference of opinion here. For example, retail winners and others both agree that increased visibility to monitor the supply chain in real time and the ability to react is very, very important to them. So this gets back to that supply chain issue I was talking about just a little bit ago. And there's also general agreement that they have to be able to source products closer to home. And that is a direct result of what's been going on in the last several years during the pandemic. But here's where they differentiate. Winners put much, much more value on predictive modeling and moving away from supply chains and towards supply networks. These are important changes or important differences that we want to point out. All retailers understand that the new data that's available to them, non-transactional data coming from the market, whether it's geolocation data or weather data or competitive data, it's all important, but retail winners know what to do with it. They're using it for predictive modeling. And they're also aware that their supply chains of old are no longer adequate to the task. We're moving in the direction of supplying networks. Now, if you happen to be a technologist and are listening to this, you know the difference. A hierarchical chain is much, much different than today's networks, much simpler, in fact, to operate. But a chain is not adequate to today's market needs. We're moving in the direction of networks.